Once upon a time in a big city called Lagos, there lived a young woman named Amara Okafor. Amara was very beautiful and kind. Her skin was smooth like chocolate, and her smile could make even a sad person happy again. She was the only daughter of Chief Desmond Okafor, a very rich man who owned big companies, drove shiny cars, and lived in a large white mansion with tall gates. Everyone in town knew Chief Okafor. People feared him because of his power, but they also respected him because he helped politicians and gave money to churches. He liked when people bowed down to greet him and called him Chief. But even though Chief Okafor had everything that money could buy, he did not have peace in his heart. He was a proud man, and he believed that only rich people deserved respect. To him, poor people were lazy, dirty, and useless. Amara grew up seeing how her father treated people. He shouted at drivers, insulted cleaners, and called mechanics common beggars. She did not like that. She was different. Even though she had everything: nice clothes, a big car, and servants who cooked for her, she liked to talk to people from every walk of life. She believed that all humans deserved kindness. One hot afternoon, Amara's car broke down near a small roadside workshop. She was on her way home from work, dressed in a bright blue dress and shiny shoes. The car suddenly stopped in the middle of the road, and smoke came out from under the bonnet. The driver who usually followed her was on leave that day, so she was alone. She stepped out, looked at the smoke, and panicked. People walked past. Some stared, but no one stopped to help. Then, from across the road, a young man with dark, oily hands walked toward her. He wore an old brown shirt and jeans with patches of grease. His face was clean, but his hands were black with oil. He smiled kindly and asked, "Madam, can I help you?" Amara looked at him and said, "Yes, please. My car just stopped. I don't know what happened." The man nodded, opened the bonnet, and began to check the engine. His hands moved fast, his eyes focused. After some minutes, he found the problem: a loose battery connection. He fixed it quickly and wiped his hands on a small cloth. When he was done, the car started again. Amara clapped her hands happily. "Wow, thank you so much," she said with a bright smile. The man smiled shyly and said, "You're welcome, madam." Amara opened her purse and tried to give him some money, but he shook his head and said, "No need, madam. You were in trouble, and I just wanted to help." Amara was surprised. Most people would take the money, but this man refused. "At least tell me your name," she said. "My name is Chike," he replied softly. "I work in the small workshop down the street." Amara nodded and smiled. "Thank you, Chike. I will not forget your kindness." Then she entered her car and drove off. That night, Amara could not stop thinking about Chike. She had met many men, rich men, handsome men, smart men. But something about Chike felt different. He was humble, simple, and kind. The next week, Amara's car had a small issue again. She smiled to herself and thought, "Maybe I can visit that workshop." She drove back to the same area and found Chike working on another car. When he saw her, he looked surprised but happy. "Madam, you came back," he said, smiling. Amara laughed. "Yes, my car is making a funny sound again." Chike checked the car and fixed it in a few minutes. When she tried to pay, he again refused. "You can't keep helping me for free," she said. Chike smiled and said, "Helping you makes me happy." "You remind me that kindness still exists." Amara blushed. Soon she began to visit the workshop more often. Sometimes her car didn't even have a problem, but she would stop by with cold drinks for Chike and his friends. They would talk and laugh. He told her stories about his childhood in the village, how he came to Lagos to find work, and how he dreamed of one day opening a big car company of his own. Amara listened closely and admired his spirit. She began to see how hard life was for people like him, how he worked long hours under the hot sun just to earn little money. But she also saw that he never complained. He was always cheerful. He treated everyone with respect. Weeks turned into months, and before anyone could understand what was happening, Amara and Chike had fallen deeply in love. It was pure, simple, and true. They did not care about wealth or class. They found peace in each other's company. But soon, rumors began to spread. People who worked for Chief Okafor saw Amara's car near the mechanic workshop many times. Some even took pictures. One of them told Chief Okafor, "Sir, your daughter is spending time with a poor mechanic in the slum." Chief Okafor was shocked. "What nonsense," he shouted. "My daughter?" With a common mechanic, never. He called Amara to his office the next day. When Amara entered, her father's face was dark with anger. "Amara," he said in a loud voice, "is it true that you have been seeing a mechanic?" Amara looked down and said softly, "Yes, Daddy. His name is Chike. He is kind, hardworking, and—" Chief Okafor banged his fist on the table. "Enough. Do you know what people are saying about our family? You are an Okafor. You cannot bring shame to me by mixing with street beggars." Amara's eyes filled with tears. "Daddy, he is not a beggar. He is a good man. He helped me when no one else did. He respects me, not because of money, but because of who I am." Chief Okafor laughed harshly. "Love does not pay bills, Amara. Love cannot buy you a house or feed you. I did not raise you to throw away your life on a man with dirty hands." He turned his back to her and said coldly, "You will stop seeing him at once. If you don't, you will no longer be my daughter." Amara was heartbroken. She went to her mother, who tried to calm her, saying, "Your father is only protecting you. You are too young to understand the world." But Amara knew she understood perfectly. She did not want to live in a world where people were judged by money. She wanted to be loved for who she was, not for her father's riches. The next day, Chief Okafor sent 2 bodyguards to Chike's workshop. He told him to stay away from Amara or face trouble. Chike looked at them calmly and said, "I have done nothing wrong. I love her, and I will not stop because of threats." The men left angrily, warning him that he would regret it. When Amara heard what her father had done, she cried all night. But instead of fear, her love grew stronger. She decided she would not let anyone choose her happiness for her. She went to see Chike the next morning. "Chike," she said, her voice trembling, "my father said he will disown me if I keep seeing you." Chike looked sad and said, "Amara, I do not want to cause you pain. Maybe you should stay with your family. You deserve a better life." Amara shook her head. "No, Chike. You are my better life. I would rather live in a small room with peace than in a mansion with pride." That night, Amara packed a small bag. She looked around her room one last time, the soft bed, the gold curtains, the pictures of her childhood, and whispered, "Goodbye." She left quietly and went to Chike's house, a small one-room apartment in a crowded street in Mushin. When she knocked, he was surprised. "Amara, what are you doing here?" he asked. "I have nowhere else to go," she said with tears in her eyes. "You are my home now." Chike hugged her tightly. The next morning, Chief Okafor found out that his daughter was gone. His wife cried and begged him to bring her back, but he refused. "She made her choice," he said bitterly. "From this day, I have no daughter." He ordered his staff to remove Amara's pictures from the house. He even told his friends that she had brought shame to the family. Days later, newspapers began to write about it. "Billionaire's daughter marries roadside mechanic," screamed the headlines. People gossiped and laughed. Some said Amara was foolish. Others said she was brave. Chief Okafor felt humiliated. He refused to talk about her again. But for Amara and Chike, life took a new shape. They rented a small apartment with old furniture and a tiny window that let in the evening sun. Amara learned how to cook on a small stove, fetch water, and live simply. Chike worked hard every day to provide for them. Even though they had little, they had love. Every night they sat outside and talked about their dreams. Amara would smile and say, "One day people will see what kind of man you are." And Chike would laugh softly and reply, "As long as you see it, that's enough for me." But deep inside, Chike carried a secret, one that he had kept hidden for years. A secret about who he really was and where he came from. But for now, he chose to live quietly. As the man Amara loved the humble mechanic with grease on his hands and gold in his heart. And so, as the moon rose over the crowded streets of Mushin, Amara and Chike sat side by side, holding hands and watching the stars. Their love was all they had, but it was enough. They didn't know it yet, but the story of the beggar and the billionaire's daughter was only just beginning. Amara and Chike now lived together in a small house in a crowded part of the city called Mushin. The house was not big. It had only one room. The walls were old. The floor was not tiled. The fan made a slow sound, and the light sometimes blinked. There was no air conditioner, no big TV, and no soft bed like the one Amara had in her father's house. But Amara was happy. She woke up every day and saw Chike's smile. She felt warm inside. She helped him sweep the room. She washed their clothes in a big bowl with her hands. She cooked rice and beans on a small stove. She learned to light the stove with matches. She laughed when smoke came to her face. Chike would run to her and say, "Careful, Amara," and she would laugh again. She did not miss the big house. She did not miss the fancy food. She was with someone who truly loved her, and that was all she needed. Chike worked at the same workshop every day. He fixed cars and cleaned engines. His hands were full of grease, but his heart was clean. When he came home at night, he brought bread and drinks. Amara would run to hug him. She would say, "You are back, my king." And he would smile and say, "And you are my queen." They did not have much, but they had love. They sat together and talked. They ate on a small table with 2 plastic chairs. Sometimes they shared one piece of meat and laughed like they were eating in a big hotel. On Sundays, they walked to church, holding hands. The pastor would smile and say, "You two look happy." They were happy. Amara made friends in the street. She helped a woman next door to sell snacks. She played with little children outside. Everyone liked her. No one could believe that she once lived in a mansion. She never spoke about her past. She only said, "God has given me all I need." But far away, in a tall house with gates and guards, Chief Okafor was angry. He read the newspapers and saw people talking about Amara. "She ran away with a mechanic," they said. "She lives in a poor street now." His friends laughed at him. Some called to say, "Sorry, Chief," but others called to gossip. "Your daughter has disgraced you," they said. Chief Okafor shouted at them and dropped the phone. He told his wife, "I warned her. I told her not to see that boy. Now look at what she has done." His wife cried and said, "Please forgive her. She is still our child." But Chief Okafor said, "No, she is no longer my child. She chose shame over pride. She left gold for dust." He sat alone in his big chair, but he was not happy. He had all the money, but no joy. His only daughter was gone. He missed her voice. He missed her smile. But his pride was too big. He would not say sorry. He would not bring her back. He told his workers, "Do not speak her name in this house." He told the guards, "If she comes here, do not open the gate." And so the big house became quiet. The rooms were clean but cold. The halls were wide but empty. The garden had flowers but no joy. Chief Okafor sat and thought about how a poor mechanic had taken his daughter. He called Chike a beggar. He called him a thief of love. But he did not know the full truth about Chike. He did not know that the man he called poor was not just a mechanic. He did not know that Chike had a past, a big past. Chike had come to Lagos many years ago. He had no one with him. He lived in a small room and worked many jobs. He carried blocks at building sites. He swept shops. He later learned how to fix cars. He worked hard every day. People in the workshop liked him. He was quiet, but smart. He knew how to use tools. He learned fast. One day, the old owner of the workshop said, "You are good. You will go far." Chike smiled and said, "Thank you, sir." But what no one knew was that Chike once lived in London. Yes, London, the big city in another country. Long ago, his father was a rich man, too. His father had big lands, many shops, and a company with offices in 3 countries. But when his father died, some people fought over the money. There was trouble in the family. Chike left it all. He changed his name and came to Nigeria to live a simple life. He wanted to be free. He wanted to see who would love him without money. And now, he had found her. Amara loved him with all her heart, even when she thought he had nothing. But Chike had not told her his secret. He wanted more time. He wanted to build something with his hands first. He wanted to earn his life again from the ground up. So every day he woke up early. He washed his face. He wore his work clothes and kissed Amara before going to the workshop. Amara would wave and say, "Be safe, my love." Then she would clean the room, wash clothes, and go to help a woman who sold akara. She did not feel shame. She was proud of the simple life. She said, "This is our kingdom, and you are my king." At night, when the light went off, they lit a candle. They sat on the floor and told each other stories. Chike would say, "One day, I will build my own car company." Amara would say, "I will be your manager." They laughed and hugged. Sometimes the roof leaked when it rained. Sometimes mosquitoes bit their legs. But they never complained. They said, "We are rich in love." One day, Amara saw one of her old friends at the market. The friend was shocked. "Amara, is it really you?" Amara smiled and said, "Yes, it is me." The friend looked at her old clothes and said, "What happened to you?" "You used to wear gold," Amara said. "Now I wear peace." The friend shook her head and said, "I feel sorry for you." Amara smiled and said, "Don't." I am happy. She walked away with her tomatoes and onions. That night she told Chike what happened. He hugged her and said, "You are the strongest woman I know." She said, "And you are the best man I have ever met." But deep in the heart of the city, Chief Okafor sat with angry thoughts. He was planning something. He could not stand that his daughter was happy with a man he called poor. He said, "I will make him go away. Then she will come back to me." He picked up his phone and made a call. "Watch him," he said. "Find out where he goes. Find out what he does." The men on the other end of the phone said, "Yes, sir." They began to follow Chike in secret. They wanted to catch him doing something bad, but they found nothing. Chike went to work. He fixed cars. He helped people. He came home. He was honest. He was clean. The men told Chief Okafor, "We found nothing, sir. The man is simple. He is not a thief." Chief Okafor shouted, "Everyone has a price. Find his." But Chike had no price. He had love. He had peace. He had Amara. And so the days passed. Life was still hard. Money was still small. But their joy was big. They were like two birds flying together. They shared one plate. They shared one dream. They shared one heart. And even though storms were coming, they did not know. They only knew that love had brought them together, and they were ready to walk through anything as long as they were walking side by side. Life was not easy for Amara and Chike, but they were still happy. Every morning, Chike woke up before the sun came out. He washed his face, put on his work clothes, and walked to the workshop. The sun was hot, the road was dusty, and the work was hard, but he never stopped. He fixed cars, cleaned tools, and helped his boss. His hands were always full of grease. He came home tired, but he always smiled when he saw Amara waiting at the door. Amara would hug him and say, "Welcome home, my king." Then she would bring him water to wash his hands and food to eat. Sometimes the food was just rice and stew with no meat. Sometimes it was only bread and ground nut. But they ate it with joy. At night they would sit outside and talk. They would hold hands and look at the stars. Chike would say, "One day our story will change." Amara would say, "It already has. I have you." But even though their hearts were full of love, their pockets were empty. There were days when there was no money to buy food. There were days when the roof leaked when it rained. There were days when the light went off and the room was very hot. But Amara never complained. She would say, "This is just a season. It will pass." But one day something bad happened. Amara woke up and felt weak. Her head was hot. Her eyes were heavy. She tried to stand up, but she fell back on the bed. Chike ran to her and said, "Amara, are you okay?" She shook her head slowly. "I feel sick," she said. Chike touched her forehead. It was very hot. He carried her to the small clinic down the street. The nurse there checked her and said, "She has malaria. She needs rest and medicine." Chike asked, "How much is the medicine?" The nurse said, 8,000 naira. Chike checked his pocket. He only had 2,000. He looked at Amara. She was lying on the bed, her eyes closed, her skin pale. He felt pain in his heart. He said, "Please help her. I will bring the money." The nurse said, "We will give her a small drip first." They put the drip in Amara's arm and gave her some water. Chike held her hand. He said, "You will be fine, my love. I promise." Then he ran out. He went to his workshop and told his boss, "My wife is sick. I need help." The boss said, "We don't have much today. Maybe tomorrow." Chike nodded and said, "Okay." But he could not wait. Amara needed help now. Chike went home and looked around. There was nothing to sell. No TV, no fan, no gold. But outside the room, leaning on the wall, was his motorcycle. It was old, but it still worked. He used it sometimes to carry things. He looked at it for a long time. Then he made a choice. He pushed the motorcycle to the road and rode it to a man who sold used bikes. "How much will you give me?" he asked. The man looked at the bike and said, "I can give you 10,000. Chike said, "Please, it is worth more." The man said, "Take it or leave it." Chike closed his eyes and said, "Okay, I'll take it." The man gave him the money. Chike ran back to the clinic. He paid the nurse and bought the medicine. He sat beside Amara and gave her the medicine slowly. She opened her eyes and smiled weakly. "You're back," she said. He smiled and said, "I told you I would take care of you." Amara held his hand and said, "You are my angel." After some days, Amara got better. She could sit up. She could walk again. She cooked a small pot of soup and fed Chike with love. But when she asked about the motorcycle, Chike told her the truth. "I sold it to save you," he said. Amara's eyes filled with tears. "You gave up your bike for me?" He nodded. She hugged him tight. "You are the richest man I know," she said. Chike smiled and said, "But I have no money." She said, "You have love. That is enough." But even though Amara was smiling again, the sickness had made her weaker. She could not go out as much. She stayed home and rested. Chike now walked long distances since he had no bike. He came home tired and wet when it rained. His shoes had holes. His shirt had patches. But he kept going. He said, "If I stop, who will take care of my queen?" Sometimes he took small jobs at night. He helped to push broken cars or sweep shops, anything to earn more money. Amara watched him with tears in her eyes. She said, "You are suffering because of me." Chike would laugh and say, "No, I am growing because of you." One night there was no food. Chike had no money. Amara had only 1 cup of gari left. She poured water in it and added a little sugar. She gave Chike the cup. He said, "Let us share it." She said, "No. You worked all day. Eat, my king." He drank it slowly. Then he gave her the last sip. She smiled and drank it. They looked at each other and laughed. "One day," Chike said, "we will tell this story to our children." Amara said, "And they will not believe it." Even though they were poor, they were close. Even though they had little, they had each other. But the days were getting harder. Rent was coming. Food was low. Clothes were old. And still, Chike had not told Amara about his past. He had not told her that he once lived in a rich house. He had not told her that there was something waiting for him far away. He wanted to wait for the right time. He wanted to be sure. He wanted to see if love could really grow in dust. And now he knew. Amara loved him with her whole heart. She stayed when things got tough. She smiled when there was nothing to smile about. She cooked with firewood. She fetched water in buckets. She washed clothes with her hands. She gave her last food. She gave her soft words. She gave her whole life. And Chike saw all this. He said to himself, "This is not just a woman. This is my home." But far away, Chief Okafor still sat in his big house. He wore fine clothes and ate fine food. But his heart was bitter. His friends laughed behind his back. They said, "The chief's daughter ran away with a beggar." He said nothing. He only frowned. He hated to hear Chike's name. He said, "One day, she will come crawling back. One day, she will beg." But he did not know what was coming. He did not know that the boy he called a beggar was more than he looked. He did not know that the world was about to turn upside down, and when it did, it would shake his pride and change everything. One hot morning, Chike woke up early like he always did. He kissed Amara on the forehead and whispered, "I'm going to work, my queen." Amara was still weak, so she smiled and held his hand before letting him go. Chike walked slowly down the street. His shoes were old and his legs felt tired, but his heart was full of love. He reached the workshop and began to fix a car. His hands moved quickly, wiping grease, turning bolts, and checking wires. The sun was bright, and the sound of car horns filled the air. Then suddenly his small phone rang. It was an unknown number, and the voice that spoke was from far away. It sounded like someone from London. The voice said, "Hello, Mr. Chike Odinaka Nwosu?" Chike stood still. That was his real name, a name he had not heard in many years. He looked around. No one was listening. "Yes," he said softly. "Speaking." The voice on the phone said, "I'm calling from a law office in London. We have been trying to reach you for a long time. You are the son of late Mr. Obinna Nwosu, founder of Odinaka Holdings International. The company has been waiting to settle the inheritance case, and now it is done. You are the only heir. Everything now belongs to you. Chike's hands shook. He could not speak. His mind went blank. The voice continued, "We will need you to sign some papers. A lawyer will meet you in Lagos this week. Please confirm your identity." Chike replied slowly, "Yes, I am him." The call ended. Chike sat down on a stool beside the car. His heart beat fast. His head was full. He looked at his dirty hands and his old shirt. He looked around at the noisy street, the dusty floor, and the broken tools. And then he remembered everything. He remembered the day his father died. He remembered the fight over the company. He remembered how he left London, changed his name, and came to Nigeria. He wanted a new life. He wanted to be free. He wanted someone to love him, not his money. And now all the things he had walked away from had found him again. Chike stood up slowly and walked to the back of the workshop. He took a deep breath. He touched his chest. "It's happening," he said to himself. "Everything is coming back." That evening, Chike came home early. Amara was sitting outside peeling vegetables. She smiled when she saw him. "You're home early," she said. He smiled back and sat beside her. He wanted to tell her everything, but he stopped. He looked into her eyes. They were full of peace. She was happy in their little life. She had no idea that the man she loved was now the owner of a company worth billions. Chike held her hand and said, "Amara, if something big happened, something really big, would you still love me the same?" Amara looked at him and said, "I love you with or without anything. I chose you when you had nothing. I will choose you again and again." Chike smiled and nodded. "Thank you," he said. But he still did not tell her. He wanted to wait. He was not sure what to do yet. He needed time to think. 3 days later, a black car stopped in front of the workshop. A tall man in a suit came out and asked, "Is this where I can find Mr. Chike Odinaka Nwosu?" Chike walked forward and said, "That's me." The man smiled and said, "I am from the London office. These are the papers. Please sign here." Chike took the papers with shaking hands. They had gold stamps and long words. He could not understand all of them, but he knew what it meant. It meant he was now the owner of Odinaka Holdings International. The man gave him more papers and said, "These are your bank accounts. The money has already been moved. There are also company shares and property documents." Chike nodded slowly. He signed where he was told. When the man left, Chike stood still. He was now a billionaire, but he still had dust on his shoes. That night he sat with Amara again. They ate plain rice with palm oil. There was no meat. The light was out. They used a candle. Amara said, "You are quiet today. Are you okay?" Chike nodded. "Yes, I'm fine. Just tired." Amara smiled and rubbed his back. "You work too hard." Chike looked at her and said, "Amara, if tomorrow we had more, a lot more, would you still want this kind of life?" Amara laughed and said, "No, I would buy you a new shoe first." They both laughed. Then she said, "But I would still want you. I don't care where we live. I just want you." Chike kissed her forehead and said, "Then that's all I need." For the next few days, Chike did not change anything. He still woke up early. He still went to the workshop. He still wore his old clothes. He still came home with bread and groundnut. He hid the papers in a small bag under the bed. He did not tell anyone, not even his boss at work. He said to himself, "Let me think first. Let me see what kind of man I want to be." He knew that if people found out, they would treat him differently. They would fear him. They would want his money. But he did not want fear. He did not want fake smiles. He wanted real things. That was why he loved Amara. She saw him when no one else did. She loved him when he had nothing. She chose him when the world laughed. And now the world would soon see that the man they called mechanic was something much more. Far away in the big house, Chief Okafor still sat with a bitter face. He did not know anything. He still believed that Chike was poor. He still called him a beggar. He still waited for the day Amara would come back crying. But that day was not coming. Something else was coming. Something big. Something that would shake him. And when it came, he would remember all the things he said, all the names he called Chike, and he would wish he had looked deeper. Chief Okafor sat in his big house with his face full of anger. His phone was full of bad news. His company was losing money. His workers were not happy. His bank called to say he had missed 2 payments. Some of his best business friends stopped answering his calls. His name was now in the newspapers, not for good things, but for bad ones. People whispered behind his back. They said, "The great Chief Okafor is falling." At night, he could not sleep well. He walked around his house and shouted at his workers. His wife told him, "Let us call Amara. Maybe she can bring peace to this house again." But Chief Okafor shouted back, "She left me for a beggar. I will never beg her to return." But deep inside, he missed his daughter. He missed her smile. He missed her laugh. But his pride was too big. He could not say sorry. So he stayed angry and alone. He sat in his big chair and held his head. "Everything is falling," he said to himself. "Everything I built is breaking." But somewhere else in the same city, things were different. Chike's life was changing, but quietly. He now had money in his bank account. Big money. He was no longer poor. He had companies. He had houses. He had cars waiting for him. But he still walked to the workshop. He still came home to Amara with bread and groundnut. He still wore his old shirt and dusty shoes, but his mind was busy. Every day he thought about what to do next. He knew he could not hide the truth forever. One evening, a car came to their street. It was black and shiny. A man in a suit came out and handed Chike a package. Amara saw it and asked, "What is that?" Chike said, "Just some papers for work." Amara smiled and went back inside, but her heart felt strange. That night, Chike sat outside and looked at the stars. Amara came to sit beside him. She held his hand. "Is something wrong?" she asked. Chike looked at her and said, "Amara, I need to tell you something." "Something big." Amara looked at him with wide eyes. "What is it?" she asked. Chike took a deep breath. Then he told her the whole truth. He told her that his real name was Chike Odinaka Nwosu. He told her that his father had been a very rich man. He told her that he once lived in London in a big house. He told her that he left all of it to find peace. He told her that after his father died, people fought over the company, but in the end, the company came back to him. He told her that he was now the owner of Odinaka Holdings, one of the biggest companies in the world. He told her that all the money and property now belonged to him. Amara sat very still. She did not speak for a long time. Then she said, You are a billionaire?" Chike nodded slowly. "Yes, but I did not want to tell you until I was sure. I wanted to know if you truly love me. And you did. You chose me when I had nothing." Amara looked at him, and tears came to her eyes. She touched his face and said, "I chose you because of your heart, not your money. I would choose you again, even if you had nothing." Chike hugged her tight. "Now I want to build a new life for us," he said. "A good life, one that matches the love we have." Amara nodded and smiled. "I'm ready." The next day, Chike did not go to the workshop. He went to a hotel with a big hall. He met with a group of lawyers and workers from his company. He signed more papers. He gave new orders. He began to move money and make plans. Amara sat with him, wearing her simple dress and her soft smile. Everyone looked at her and wondered, who is this woman? But Chike looked at her and said, she is my wife. She is the reason I am strong. Then Chike told the team, I want to buy a new house. Not too big, but clean and peaceful. They nodded and gave him many pictures to choose from. He picked a house with white walls, a garden, and a blue roof. It had trees in front and flowers in the back. Amara smiled when she saw it. It looks like a place where love can grow, she said. Later that week, Chike told Amara, I have been invited to speak at a big business summit. They want me to talk about my journey. They do not know my face, only my name. I want to go. Will you come with me? Amara said, of course. She wore a beautiful dress and wrapped her hair in a soft scarf. Chike wore a clean black suit. They entered a big car with a driver and drove to the hotel where the summit was held. The hall was full of rich people, business leaders and news reporters. People whispered as they walked in. That is Chike Nwosu, they said, the owner of Odinaka Holdings. Many had never seen him before. He went on stage and stood behind the microphone. He looked around and smiled. Then he began to speak. He told them how he grew up. He told them how he left London and came to Nigeria. He told them how he worked in a small workshop and fixed cars. He told them how he met a woman who loved him when he had nothing. He told them how love gave him strength. Money is not the best thing, he said. Love is. Peace is. Truth is. The people clapped. Some stood up. Some wiped tears from their eyes. Chike came down from the stage and held Amara's hand. The cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Is it true you once lived in Mushin? Is this the woman you married when you were poor? Chike nodded. Yes, she is my wife, my heart, my home. That night the news spread fast. The poor mechanic was now a billionaire. The woman who ran away from her father's house was now the queen beside the king. And far away, in his cold house, Chief Okafor watched the news on his TV. His eyes were wide. His mouth was open. He saw Chike in a black suit. He saw Amara in a fine dress. He heard the crowd clap, and he knew. He had made a big mistake. He had called Chike a beggar. But now the whole world was clapping for him. Chief Okafor dropped the remote. His hands shook. No, he said. It cannot be. But it was true, and the truth was breaking his pride. From that day, everything changed for Chike and Amara. They moved into their new house, the one with the white walls, the blue roof, and the green garden full of flowers. The house was quiet, clean, and full of light. Amara walked through each room and smiled. She said, "This is our new beginning." Chike nodded and said, "Yes, and you deserve every part of it." They had new clothes now, soft beds, warm water, a big kitchen, and a sitting room with a soft sofa. There was a big fridge full of food. Chike also bought Amara a new phone, new shoes, and a beautiful necklace. But Amara still cooked herself. She still helped arrange the house. She still held Chike's hand and prayed with him every morning. She did not let the money change her, and Chike did not change either. Even though people now called him Sir, he still smiled with everyone. He still helped old women cross the road. He still waved at children on the street. His heart was still soft. His love was still strong. Now, many people wanted to see him. News reporters wrote about him every day. Magazines showed his face and called him the hidden heir. Some called him the beggar billionaire. People were surprised. They said, "How can a man who fixed cars be the owner of a big company?" But Chike was calm. He told them, "A good heart is worth more than gold." Amara became loved too. People saw her and said, "She stood by him when he had nothing." Women wanted to learn from her. They said, "Teach us how to love truly." Amara only smiled and said, "Just follow your heart." They were now like a light, a big light shining in a dark world. Everyone wanted to hear their story. Chike was invited to speak on TV. He told people to never judge others by their clothes or their job. "I wore grease on my hands, but love was in my heart," he said. People clapped and nodded. Business leaders wanted to meet him. They invited him to big events. They asked him to join business groups. And slowly, Chike began to rise. His company grew. He opened new offices in Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt. He gave jobs to many young people. He gave money to schools and helped poor families. People called him the kind billionaire. He smiled and said, "That is because I was once poor." But while Chike and Amara were rising, Chief Okafor was falling. His company was in trouble. His workers were angry. Some had not been paid for 2 months. His bank account was low. He tried to talk to his old friends, but they were now too busy. His pride became pain. He sat in his big house alone, watching the news. Every channel showed Chike. Every newspaper wrote about him. And each time, Chief Okafor felt shame. One day, he saw a full-page story with the title, "From Mechanic to Master." Chike's picture was big on the front. He was wearing a suit and smiling beside Amara. Chief Okafor stared at the photo. He touched his head and said, "This is the same boy I chased away. The same boy I called a beggar." His wife came into the room and asked, "Will you call them now?" But he shouted, "No, let them enjoy without me." She said softly, "You are hurting. You miss her." He said nothing. He turned his face to the wall. More days passed. One morning, a new invite came to Chike's company. It was for a big business summit in Abuja. Many top leaders would be there. Chike read the invite and smiled. Amara asked, "Will you go?" Chike nodded. "Yes, I think I must go." Amara asked, "Do you know who else will be there?" Chike looked at the paper. He saw the name, Chief Desmond Okafor, guest panelist. He looked up slowly. Amara saw his face and asked again, "Is my father going to be there?" Chike said, "Yes." There was a long silence. Then Amara said, "Are you ready to see him?" Chike nodded and said, "Yes." It's time they packed their bags and got ready for the trip. The summit hall in Abuja was very big. The lights were bright. The chairs were full. Cameras flashed everywhere. Businessmen and women wore suits and fine dresses. They spoke in soft voices. Then the host came on stage and said, "Please welcome our special speaker, the man behind Odinaka Holdings, Mr. Chike Nwosu." The hall clapped loudly. Chike walked in, wearing a sharp black suit. Amara walked beside him, wearing a long red dress. Her hair was tied neatly. She looked like a queen. Everyone stood to greet them, but one man did not stand. It was Chief Okafor. He sat in the front row, frozen. His eyes were wide. His mouth was tight. He could not believe it. The man on stage was the same boy he once insulted, the same boy he chased from his house, the same boy he called poor. And now, that boy was walking tall. That boy was shaking hands with kings. That boy was now the husband of his daughter. Chief Okafor felt small in his chair. He held his walking stick tightly. Chike went to the microphone and began to speak. "Good evening, everyone. I thank you for being here. My story is simple. I once had everything, then left it to find something more. I worked as a mechanic. I met love. I found peace. And now I return, not with pride, but with purpose. If you want to build a strong world, you must build strong hearts." The room clapped again. Everyone smiled. Cameras took pictures. News reporters typed fast. And Chief Okafor sat still, his heart full of shame. He looked down. He could not meet Chike's eyes. He could not believe how far things had changed. The summit ended with a standing ovation. People ran to greet Chike. Amara smiled and stood beside him proudly. No one asked about her past. No one cared where she used to live. They only saw the woman who loved truly, and the man who rose from dust to diamonds. After the big business summit ended, everyone stood and clapped. People ran to take pictures with Chike. Some wanted to shake his hand, some wanted to ask questions, and others just wanted to say thank you. Amara stood beside him smiling. She looked proud and calm. Her eyes were full of love. She held Chike's hand as people kept coming. But one man stayed in his chair. He did not move. He did not clap. He just sat there quietly, holding his walking stick. It was Chief Okafor. His heart was heavy. His mouth was dry. He looked at the stage and saw his daughter shining like the sun. He looked at Chike and saw a man the world now respected. A man he once called a beggar. A man he had tried to push away. But now that same man stood on the biggest stage. That same man had become the talk of the whole country. And he, Chief Okafor, who once walked like a king, now sat like a forgotten man. The shame was too much. He remembered how he shouted at Amara. He remembered how he threw her out. He remembered how he sent men to warn Chike. Now he saw the truth. He had been proud. He had been blind. And now the truth was standing in front of the whole world, while he sat in silence. After the event, many people left the hall. Some stayed to take more pictures. Chief Okafor tried to stand up. His legs shook a little. He walked slowly to the back of the hall. He did not want to talk to anyone. He just wanted to breathe. He stood near a wall and looked down. Then he heard a soft voice behind him. "Chief." He turned. It was Chike. He stood tall, but his face was kind. There was no anger in his eyes. Just calm. Just peace. Chief Okafor looked at him and did not speak. He could not. Chike took a step closer. "Sir," he said, "I know you may not want to see me, but I want to speak with you." Chief Okafor took a deep breath. He looked around. Then he said, "You don't have to say anything. I have already seen everything." His voice was low. "I was wrong," he added. Chike looked at him with soft eyes. "You are her father," he said. "I never wanted to fight with you. I only wanted your blessing." Chief Okafor looked down. He wiped his face. "I was proud. I judged you too fast. I thought you were nothing. I was wrong." Chike nodded slowly. "Thank you for saying that," he said. "That means a lot to me." Then Chief Okafor looked up and said something he had never said before. "Thank you for loving my daughter. Thank you for not giving up on her. Thank you for protecting her when I did not." His voice broke. His eyes became red. He touched Chike's shoulder. "You are a better man than I ever was." Chike gently held his hand and said, "Sir, it is never too late to love again. She still misses you." Chief Okafor shook his head. "After all I said, after all I did, I don't deserve her love." Chike smiled. "That's what love does. It forgives. She is your daughter. Go to her." Chief Okafor looked away. He could not stop his tears. He took slow steps out of the hall. Amara was waiting outside. She stood near the car looking up at the sky. When she saw her father, she froze. He walked slowly toward her. She did not know what to say. He stopped in front of her. He looked into her eyes. "Amara," he said softly, "my daughter, I am sorry." Her eyes filled with tears. She did not move. He said again, "I was wrong. I was proud. I lost you because I was blind. But now I see. Can you forgive me?" Amara stood still for a moment. Then she slowly walked forward and hugged him. "Daddy," she said, "I missed you." He held her tight and cried. She cried too. People walking by saw them and smiled. Some clapped softly. A father and daughter had found each other again. Chike walked over and stood beside them. Chief Okafor looked at him and said, "Thank you, son." Chike nodded and said, "Welcome back, sir." They all got into the car together and drove back to the hotel. That night they ate dinner as a family for the first time in a long while. Chief Okafor looked around the table and smiled. "This is what I was missing," he said. Amara held Chike's hand and whispered, "This is the peace we prayed for." And Chike smiled and whispered back, "Yes. This is the home we built with love." Months passed after that day in Abuja when Chief Okafor said sorry to Chike and Amara. Their hearts were full again. There was no more pain between them. They visited each other often. They laughed again. They ate together like a real family. Amara and her mother would cook in the kitchen and sing old songs while Chief Okafor and Chike sat outside under the shade and talked about life, about work, and about what really matters. They no longer spoke about money all the time. They spoke about peace. They spoke about kindness. They spoke about second chances. One sunny afternoon, Amara felt a sharp pain in her belly. She held her stomach and sat down. Chike ran to her quickly. "Are you okay?" he asked. She nodded slowly and said, "I think the baby is coming." Chike called the driver and they rushed to the hospital. The nurses took Amara in and told Chike to wait outside. He walked up and down the hallway, his heart beating fast. He prayed and whispered, "Please let her be safe. Please let the baby be strong." Hours passed. Then the doctor came out smiling. "Congratulations, sir," he said. "You have a baby boy." Chike's eyes filled with tears. He ran into the room and saw Amara lying on the bed, holding a tiny baby in her arms. She looked tired but happy. Chike kissed her forehead and looked at the baby. The baby yawned and moved his little hands. "He's perfect," Chike said. "What shall we name him?" Amara smiled and said, "Let's call him Desmond Chike Nwosu." Chike looked at her and smiled deeply. "You want to name him after your father?" Amara nodded. "Yes." Because forgiveness is stronger than anger, Chike held the baby and whispered, "Welcome to the world, my son." The news of the baby made everyone happy. Chief Okafor rushed to the hospital. When he saw the baby, he could not stop crying. He carried his grandson in his arms and said, "I will protect you. I will love you with all my heart." He looked at Amara and said, "Thank you, my daughter. You have taught me what love really means." He looked at Chike and said, "You are not just my son-in-law. You are my son." Chike smiled and said, "We are one family now." They all took pictures together. The nurses smiled. The doctors clapped. It was a day full of joy. After they brought the baby home, Chike began to think about his journey. He remembered his days in the workshop. He remembered when he had only one shirt. He remembered when he sold his motorcycle to buy medicine for Amara. He remembered the days they shared one plate of food. He remembered the tears, the struggle, and the pain. And now he had a house, a family, and a company. But most of all, he had love. One morning, he told Amara, "I want to build something that will help others." She asked, "What do you mean?" He said, "I want to start a foundation. I want to help young people who are like me, people who fix cars, people who sell bread, people who dream big, but have nothing." Amara held his hand and said, "Let's do it together." They named it the Greece Initiative, because Greece was once on Chike's hands when the world saw him as small. Now that same Greece had led him to greatness. The Greece Initiative started small. Chike and Amara gave money to young boys and girls to learn a skill. Some learned to fix cars. Some learned to sew clothes. Some learned to use computers. They also built a big workshop where young people could train for free. They gave food to widows and built a library in Mushin. On the wall of the library was a picture of Chike, in his old workshop clothes, holding a spanner. Beside it was a picture of Amara with a baby tied on her back, serving food to children. And under the pictures were the words, "Never judge a person by what they wear." Look at their heart. People came from many places to see what Chike and Amara were doing. Some gave support. Some told their stories. One boy said, "Because of you, I believe I can become something too." One girl said, "I want to love like Amara. She is strong and kind." Chike always told them, "You are enough. Do not be ashamed of your beginning. The ground may be dirty, but the tree that grows from it can give sweet fruit." Amara would smile and add, "Love can grow in any place, even in dust." Chief Okafor became a new man too. He spoke softly now. He greeted people with respect. He told young men not to chase only money, but to build good character. When asked about his past mistake, he said, "I once looked at a man's hands and missed his heart, but I will never do that again." He told fathers to listen to their children. He told mothers to teach love, not fear. He sat with his grandson every weekend and told him stories. He said, "You come from greatness, but greatness must be humble." And so the days passed, filled with peace. Chike and Amara continued to grow in love. Their home was full of laughter. Their hands were always giving. Their story was told in schools, in churches, and on the radio. People called it a miracle, but Chike said, "It is not a miracle. It is just love, wrapped in dust, waiting to shine."